Legal cases, legal issues, legal matters. You're watching WFTV's Law Talk with anchor Christopher Heath and expert legal analyst, attorney Mark NeJame.
All right, let's talk about some of the current cases, issues, and legal matters that our viewers are talking about. Joining me today is legal analyst Mark NeJame of the NeJame Law Firm,
Chris.
And Trey Flynn, who is in the criminal division. He's a partner over there at the NeJame Law Firm. We're talking today about cybercrime, and cybercrime is one of those parts of the law that has really come into being in the last quarter century or so because, you know, we're dealing with computers that most people didn't have in their homes until about the 90s.
Didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so, and as you pointed out in the past, you know, the law is always behind society. And so the law continues to try to catch up to society, but by the time it goes through identifying the problem, going through the legislatures, passing, going into law, you know, a lot of crimes have happened before the law was really caught up to it. And cyber crimes, we see more and more and more. We get more calls constantly over these type of cases. Why? Because there's more new inventive ways for people to go out and commit crimes using the internet. And there's a lot of fraud. I think, I can't even tell you how many during the course of a week I get. I did one last night. I saw one of my, our intake person went ahead and responded to somebody, and I looked at it and go, this is a scam. You know, it was just somebody coming in and trying to defraud us. And that happens literally every day. And so, you know, the penalties are significant. And I will also say that there's another side to this, and that is that a lot of times people are legitimately doing business, but because it's a new area, sometimes they're under suspicion by law enforcement for committing crimes when in fact it's really just a civil dispute. So there are defenses to these, but we all have to be very careful because it is an ever-evolving area of the law that seemingly every day, every week, every month, we're finding new areas of fraud that are occurring.
And Trey, it's one of those things too where, you know, when you say cybercrime, maybe you think, I tap into your bank account and take $10,000 out of it. But it could also be, I am bullying you online. I'm stalking you online. You know, one of the things we've done a couple stories here at Channel 9 on people taking those Apple AirTags and putting them in purses and then tracking where women are going. This all falls kind of under that big umbrella of cybercrime.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we've seen the last few years, our forms of communication on the internet have increased exponentially. Everyone has several social media accounts, several forms of discussion, you know, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever it might be. But what we've seen people take with those items is approaches towards stalking people or following people or trying to steal people's identities through these avenues, knowing that there are weaknesses in those systems. And so there are times where somebody could be subject to a cyber stalking from an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend, an old friend, whatever it might be, and they use these social media accounts either in a fraudulent way, creating a fake account, creating fake profiles, whatever it might be, or using the dynamics of what these various platforms offer to follow somebody around and know where they are at all times and use that to their ability to either control them or scare them in some form or fashion. And
this is also too, I mean, when we think about crime, we think it has to be physical, like you and I in the same room. This could be across the country, across the state, just across the city. You don't, because the nature of the internet, the nature of technology, I don't even need to be anywhere near you to commit a crime.
Across the world.
Yeah.
This happens. We have people in certain countries specifically they have banks of people who are doing nothing but sending out, they're phishing. They're just sending out information and attempting to hook some people. And, you know, people will send money in there. I remember one day I got a phone call from somebody who was a professional engineer, somebody that I think was an accountant, and they both were subject to this scam that was going on. These are professionals who, you know, and they were scared to death. And that scam was that somebody said the IRS is coming after you if you don't drop off some money. And they both thought that might be happening. And Trey brought up a very good point. It doesn't just have to be fraud cases. Revenge porn, you know, where people, I'll just say it, we try to stay pretty neutral here, but they stupidly put their private affairs, their romantic affairs, and being generous, on the internet, or they give them to their spouse rather, or their friend, or you know, whoever they might be dating. And the next thing you know, after they break up, there it is, they're being threatened, and all of a sudden they end up on a porn site for something that they thought was private. All these are forms of cyber crimes. And so when it comes to the computers, you don't know who you're talking to many of the times. And just because you see a name come in, there are so many sophisticated ways, and actually some of them are becoming somewhat unsophisticated but regular, where you think somebody's writing to you and it turns out it's a scam. So if it smells bad, if it tastes bad, if it looks bad, probably is bad, and don't just jump at it. Make sure you get it checked out.
And Trey, the law is like anything else, trying to catch up as best it can, but the internet technology moves at a mile a minute. The law tends to be a little bit more nuanced and a little slower. Absolutely.
The laws always lag significantly behind the technology, and we've seen that the last few years. I think the biggest area we've seen that is in that cyberbullying forum that Mark was just speaking about. The reason for that is a lot of times our legislators don't know how to respond to these sorts of new ways to affect people's lives, and they don't particularly do it until it's become absolutely necessary.
And if I could say, Trey, I mean, we could talk about this topic for hours. Yeah. We won't. But you know, we've talked about fraud, we've talked about revenge porn, but you know, what touches so many people, and that is exactly what Trey was saying. You know, cyberbullying for kids in school is a crime, and it's a big part of what goes on right now. So it's not like kids are ganging up and beating each other up like in the old days. They're beating them up online, and that's causing terrible consequences for many of these kids with their self-esteem, with suicide attempts, with drug use, with all sorts of issues that surface. And it's a crime, and that's where, as Trey and you were talking about, you know, the law is slowly catching up to technology. But it's on the books now, and cyberbullying is a real crime so for any of those kids or others who are bullying people, and it can be adults who are going after people and ganging up on them. If you cross the line, you've got consequences.
Something to definitely keep an eye on. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Trey. All right, well, if you'd like to see more of this Law Talk or any of our other Law Talks, visit our website at wftv.com/legal or join us each week right here on Facebook. I'm Christopher Heath, and thanks for watching.
WFTV's Law Talk was brought courtesy of the Personal Injury and Accident Division of NeJame Law.